My name is Carolyn Stridiron Davis. I am 76 years old. 76 has been really good. I turned 76 February 11th, so I just turned 76. But so far, so good. My mother, my biological mother, was from West Palm Beach, Florida, born there. My dad was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The knowledge I have of my mother is scant because she died when I was 6.5 years old. But I know that West Palm Beach, Florida was not such a good place to be based on some relative investigation that I've done. Segregation was rampant. Mistreatment of Black folks in Florida was terrible. She was born in 1925. Um, for my father, he grew up in Philadelphia, and that was a segregated place also, but they tried to make it seem like it was okay. But he didn't have it probably as rough as my mother did. I grew up in Philadelphia. When I arrived, Philadelphia seemed like a okay place to be. I felt that I was going where I wanted to go, doing what I wanted to do, but there was always the air of something behind the scenes that I wasn't aware of. So my parents did a good job of sheltering me, giving me what I needed, but not really exposing me to the real world. My parents were very good to me, took care of me, um, looked and searched for opportunities for me, but I didn't really find out what the whole scene was all about concerning the plight of Black people until I was ready to go to college. Well, I got to interject something. I'm leaving out something real important that my mother, my biological mother, did die when I was 6.5. And that was devastating. That was traumatic. But it wasn't like an outside force. It was like, for me, it was an internal force. She's gone. I lost her. I didn't find out the reason for her death until I was 21 years old. My mother passed because she decided to give herself an abortion. She had 5 children already, and we seemed to be doing well. But every now and then I realized that my father was distressed. And what he was saying, and I didn't understand, was that, oh, I got laid off again. My father was a Tuskegee Airman. He worked on airplanes, and he was a mechanic for the airplanes. He didn't fly, but he was an excellent mechanic. But it seemed like now that I reflect back on it, he was constantly bouncing from job to job. So having 5 children, my mother was home, stay at home, and she got pregnant for the 6th time. And in getting pregnant for the 6th time, my thoughts on it is she said, this is going to be a lot. And she had trained to be a nurse at Tuskegee. And I think she decided she could get away with giving herself an abortion. So from that abortion attempt, she got sepsis and she died. And the trauma of that was very intense for me. I dealt with it alone, but I didn't blame the outside world. But now in these times when I hear about abortion, I know about families, I know about money, I know about us as Black folks trying to, you know, take care of our families financially, I realized that it was the pressures of this unfair world that caused her to make a decision like that. Hospitals in Philadelphia were segregated. I had a life-threatening situation for me, and there was only one hospital in the area that I could go to. My uncle rushed me there. I had infection in my thumb. I held my hand out to him to get something. And my thumb was about this big. He looks and he saw this blue line traveling up my hand. And that blue line meant that poison was going to my heart. He was aware of that. So he's talking to my aunt. We got to get her to the hospital right away. And she says to him, but Charlie, Misericordia is, they don't, you know. He says, I'm taking her. So he rushed me to the hospital and he had to argue and fight, but they saw me. And so, yes, the hospital in Philadelphia was Philadelphia General. And I researched some about that hospital, and the conditions there were terrible. So that probably influenced her decision, and also the fact of having 5 children. We were stair steps. I mean, I'm 48, born in 48. My older brother was born in 46. You know, they were. There's another story. I won't get into it, but there was a issue at that time with the government or the powers that be uh, dealing with birth control. So that was another issue. I don't know too much about it, but my mom and dad were very loving, and probably every time, often when they were romantic with each other, another one of us was conceived. So I I have no doubt that her decision was giving the best to her 5 children, and the issue of how we as a people were treated at that time. So she died in 54, 1954. My father lived to be about, let's see, I think dad was 57 when he died, cancer. He had a brain tumor. I think it was about a year. Yeah, about a year. He had begun to walk funny and collapsed, and they discovered the tumor. And about 6 months before he died. One thing that I don't know, and I always wanted to research it, but I haven't. My mom was a nurse in training at Grady Memorial, which was connected to Tuskegee Institute in Tuskegee, Alabama. And around that time, they were doing the experiments on Black folks and withholding treatment for a disease that they knew they had a cure for, which was syphilis. And they housed Black folks and monitored Black folks to follow to see how the disease progressed. And it was pretty horrific. And I'm almost certain that my mother knew about it or had heard about it, with her being a nurse in training at Grady Memorial. And the Tuskegee experiment is what they called it. She got sick. I was standing there. I watched her get sick, or, you know, collapse, and then took her to the hospital. My father came and rushed. My father was a neighborhood ambulance. He always had a car. And when folks got sick, they would call him. Little girl got hit by a car. They called him. So they called him from his job. He came home, put her in the car, took her away. And that's the last time that I saw her. My name growing up was Carolyn Lucinda Stridiron. The idea is that perhaps my father was naming me after his father's grandmother. No, his father's mother, whose name was Caroline. And then Lucinda was my father's mother's first name. So he hooked up those two grandparent names, Carolyn, Lucinda. Stridiron comes from the islands, comes from St. Croix. And the story is that it was the name of a Dutch sailor who came ashore and met this Black woman. And the name has been passed to us, but it's a name that's pretty common in the islands. By the time I got to high school, my life situation, losing my mother, um, my I had a lot of, in elementary school and junior high school, I was pretty clever. But by the time I got to high school, I was probably going into depression. So I clawed my way through high school. I don't know how I did it, but I graduated. I got my piece of paper. I even got accepted into college. I don't know how. I do know how. It was probably affirmative action. They needed a brown face at a college called East Stroudsburg. And so I think somebody may have pulled some strings to get me in. But by the time I got to high school, I was pretty depressed. Not very social. I had a boyfriend and I was happy to have a boyfriend. But the relationship was, I was looking for me, and I felt like I couldn't be me in that relationship. But I had a boyfriend. So, let's see. I graduated at 17. 16. 16. Yeah. It lasted until I went to college. And when I got to college and I saw all these people and boys, I was like, well, wait a minute. I'm free now. I'm not at home. I can be me. So I broke up with him.
Was he devastated?
Yes. He was. All right. High school. I'm from the Brook, Will Smith School. And at that time, Overbrook High School was majority white, Jewish, and minority black. And my personality at that time was I wasn't a researcher. I wasn't aware of asking questions or looking at how things were going. I pretty much accepted the okey doke. So in in high school, they put me in a class called academic. You just had history, math, science. But there was another line of education that was called commercial academic. And I didn't know what it meant. And I didn't look it up. I didn't try to research it. But commercial academic, the students were given typing and shorthand and how to do a research paper. So I missed all of that by being academic. So when I finally got to college, I didn't have some of those skills like the typing, because back then it was on the typewriter. So I didn't have that. Neither did I ever have a conversation with a counselor that said, okay, what do you want to do? Want to be a artist? Or so I was on my own. I was winging on my own. So in high school, um, now that after I got out and talked to folks, I realized that they had pigeonholed us black folks, and a few made it to get some of those advanced courses. But remember, by this time, my grades were falling. I was kind of in a funk, so I was just trying to get through it day to day. When I got to college, first of all, I didn't even apply to the college that I got accepted to. I just got a piece of paper one day and said, "Oh, welcome to East Stroudsburg State Teachers College." I said, "Okay, I'll go there." And I was looking to be free. I was looking to, oh, college, I'm not at home anymore. And when I got to the campus, I look around, I didn't see any of us. And I'm like, oh, come to find out there were 6 African Americans on the entire campus when I got there.
What year was this?
This was 1965. So I'm like, oh, where are we? So they were the other folks there. They were just as brokenhearted as I was. So I decided that I no, I came here. I'm gonna have fun. So what I did was I tried to find the most accepting group of people on campus so that I could have fun and be me. And those people were at that time called hippies. The hippies had a drama group, an acting group. So I joined the acting group and I ended up having fun. No, not really. I was always kind of, I stayed in the dorm. Um, oh, hippie lifestyle, including like, you mean like smoking marijuana?
Whole lifestyle.
The whole lifestyle. Okay. So the whole lifestyle was probably a lot more freer than I realized. But I was on the edge and I had my first marijuana at a party at an off-campus apartment that one of the hippies had. Yes, I do. It was for me, it was fun. I enjoyed it. Um, I was like, wow, what is this? But then late, and I didn't know anything about this substance called marijuana. Later on, somebody says, it's illegal. I'm like, now remember, I'm a goody two shoes. So now I'm conflicted. Oh, so I did that once while I was in college. Whoa, oh, just enough for them to not, or for me not to be expelled or released. So I don't know if probably 2.1. I was at, they had a list, they give you a list of where everybody is based on numbers. So they got the top, I guess that would be the valedictorian. They're at the top. And then they got the person at the bottom. I was probably fourth from the bottom. I had an experience before college. Can I give you that one? So before college, I was probably about 13 or 14. And my father tried. I did get a mother, a mother that raised me, and Christmas was our big time. You could ask for something for Christmas, and I asked for some reason, I asked for ice skates. Don't know why. I didn't see anybody ice skating, but for some reason I wanted ice skates, and my father and mother got them for me. And then I could see that they were troubled because there wasn't a place for me to ice skate. So my father said, well, where I'm working now, which was outside of Philadelphia, like in the suburbs, there's a pond that freezes over. I'll take you there and you can ice skate there while I'm at work. I put on I get my skates, I go to the pond, strap them on or tie them on and realize I don't know how to do this. So I'm sitting along the bank. It's a lake and there was snow piled up. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching all the folks. And all the folks are white, no brown people there. And they're zooming by, spinning, twirling. So soon this group comes up. I don't know how many, 4, 5 of them. They come up and they surround me in a semicircle. And the ringleader, the spokesperson says, we don't let no niggers skate on our ice pond. Now, first of all, I don't even think that I had ever heard the word nigger. I'm serious. At 13, I don't think I had ever heard that word. And so when the person said it to me, I was trying to figure out what do you talk what and but the next thing that I knew, these other people from the sidelines came busting in. They grabbed me, picked me up, by the arms and said, come on. They were white. Come on, you can skate with us. And so for the rest of the time that I was there, I had a great time. Now, what did it teach me? It taught me, number one, that I was not a nigger. That was strong in my mind. Secondly, it taught me that people can be mean. And thirdly, The third thing it taught me was that I can do what I want to do. So that's what I got out of that. So when I went to college, I got to this all white campus. Like I said, eventually I hooked up with the hippies so that I could go to the off campus parties. I could be in the drama acting thing. But I also decided that if there were any places that were off limits to blacks, I was going. So one of the places that was off limits was the hangout place, where everybody goes and they drink a Coca-Cola and talk and laugh and joke. So I decided to go there. And I walked in the door and everything got silent. And once again, someone said, "Hey, come over, you can sit with us." And I did. The segregation was more mental. The things that folks that felt entitled, the segregation that I experienced, that I know that I was experiencing, was people feeling entitled who could say to you, "We don't want you here." But I always felt like that's not your choice. I want to go there, I'm going. And I did. Well, the movement was probably happening as I was struggling to get out of high school. I know the bus boycotts. I mean the folks going down and riding the buses. That was happening, but I wasn't aware of it. I was just aware of me. Everything was centered around me, my depression, my trying to figure out who I was. When I went to college, because it was all white school, the information about what was happening wasn't really, I wasn't astute enough to be reading and involved. So I kind of felt like I was on the outside. I didn't really know what was going on. So at that time, the afro became the thing. Now I had struggled with my hair in college because I had to take swimming twice a week. And every time I went swimming, it would mess up my pressed hair. And I was distraught, And one of my roommates had a electric straightening comb. So I'd go to swimming and then come back, and I'd straighten my own hair with this electric straightening comb, creating this smell of burning hair and grease that permeated the hallway. But I didn't care. I wanted my hair to be straight like I was used to. And right at the end, at 1969, one of the people in my acting group says, "I need you to be in a play, but I need you to wear your hair like, black girls are wearing their hair." And I'm sorry to say, I didn't know what he was talking about. So he shows me a picture and I look at the picture, but by this time I had a perm. And so I try to wet my hair and make it crinkle up. It wasn't doing it. As soon as all of that perm got out of my hair, I had arrived. I ended up having a afro like Angela Davis, feeling good about myself, but this was after college. It's funny. Mhm. Oh yes. I was raised, my parents really did not oh, push me to be a Christian. I pushed myself. I was in church every Sunday. Every Sunday since I was seven to 17. I was in church. I loved it. I loved going to church. I loved the ritual of the the services. I was raised as an Episcopalian, which, if you know anything about Episcopalians, they're really like Catholics without the Latin. Catholic services used to be held all in Latin, but Episcopalians, they did everything, and they didn't have the Pope. But I wasn't going for the religious part of it. I was going for the camaraderie, the socialization. So the end of that for me came when we went through this process in the Episcopalian and Catholic Church. It's called catechism. And you learn all about Jesus and Jesus's life, which I accepted it, but I never had this thing of, oh, I love Jesus. I had a thing for God. I loved God. So I we were doing this thing called Stations of the Cross. And Stations of the Cross, you go through and you see these pictures of Jesus in his life. And it was okay. I mean, we were learning, we were getting information. And at one station, I asked Father Anderson, that was his name. I was just being precocious. And I said to him, I said, Father Anderson, if God made Jesus, who made God? Now, up to that point, I had been the golden child. I had been the adorable, in church every Sunday, available to do servings when they had dinners. But for the first time, I saw his wrath, which my father talked about, but I had never seen it. His face got red. He puffed up. He took his finger and he pointed it at me and said, "We are not doing that here." And I'm like, huh? I didn't know what he was talking about. I just asked. All he had to do is say, "I don't know." Or he could have said, "That's a question that, you'll," but he was angry and he thrust that anger at me. And that was the point at which I said, I want to know who God is. Yes. It didn't blossom until I got out of college, but that was probably the beginning of me saying, wait a minute, something's not right here. I want the answer to my question. That's all. And if you don't know, say you don't know, but not get angry with me as though I had offended God. I felt like I always had a close relationship with God. I talked to God. I didn't get answers all the time, but when I, wanted to be consoled, I would talk to God. Um, I would consider myself as being very religious, but in a spiritual sense. So, if God made Jesus, Mary, Joseph, Christmas, all of that, I just wanted to know who made God. An answer like, I don't have the answer to that, but would have been sufficient, I guess. But his anger was what threw me off, because it was as though I had done something wrong by asking a question. And the firebrand part of that didn't really occur until after I got out of college, and then I felt a sense of me and the ability to search for the answer to that question. But it was there probably at 13, 14, 15. Good question. They didn't know. I was seeking it, but after getting out of college, I got a wonderful position at a school, junior high school in Philadelphia, teaching. I met some friends. All of us had afros. We were wearing our long African garb and we were strutting our stuff. So I had stopped going to church. I had another milestone, one more milestone. While I was in college, I wasn't home. I was away. And I remember seeing some of the students there getting these packages from their church. And it would be like goody stuff in there, crackers, peanut butter. I never heard from my church. Okay. But when I got home and I had graduated, I got a letter from my church. And the letter said, you are on our rolls as a parishioner, but you haven't paid it's called your tithes. You haven't paid your tithes in about 4 years. If you do not correct this, you're off of our rolls. And so I said, take my name off. Because I was offended by that. I hadn't heard from them in 4 years. I was in trouble while I was in school. I was still depressed while I was in high school, in college. I was struggling to get out of college. I made it, but then I get this letter that says, hey, you haven't done your share to support our church. And I guess I was feeling you haven't done your share in supporting me. I needed you and you weren't there. I didn't ask for any help, but at the same time, I was a little bit hurt. So that was two situations that happened. So I didn't start immediately looking for a spiritual alternative. I was pretty happy with wearing my hair in an afro. God, that was so liberating. I mean, the fact that I didn't have to straighten my hair. You've heard this story. Lots of women have this story. No more straightening your hair to look like somebody that doesn't really treat you right anyway. And I had a sense of pride and beauty that. So my spiritual quest didn't really start until I got down here to DC. I left Philadelphia in 1973 to go back to school, to go back to Howard University, School of Fine Arts. And that next year is when I met the head of um, my spiritual group, Shechem or Shechem. And he was holding a little meeting with a group of us. And out of his mouth came some words that I had asked the question about many years before. Who are you? Who made God? And his answer satisfied me. And I was like, this is where I belong. This was in DC. He had come from New York to do a little lecture in DC. Now, at that point, I wasn't at home. I didn't have to say anything to my father. And I had a mom. I don't like the word step, but I guess that's what people refer to. I had a mother that raised me. She actually raised me from about 9 until, I left home. So I didn't have to say anything to anybody. And I didn't. The minute I went to that lecture and heard that, in essence, I am a divine being. You are talking to me. You are a divine being. It became all my friends. My husband was part of the group. That was my group. I lived in a group house with 3 other women. We had a house, and that house was on 17th Street. And 17th Street, no, Irving Street. Irving Street went from Howard University, where I was in school, all the way to 17th Street, Georgia Avenue to 17th Street. And one day I was out walking, and this brother was standing on the street, on 17th Street, on a porch of a house. And I had my big afro, and I had my African garb, and I was strutting my stuff. He says, hey, sister, you want to, you're interested in coming to this little lecture that we're having on Saturday? I said, oh, okay. He gave me the paper. So that's when I heard the lecture that answered my question. So am I answering your question? Oh, so in the house where he was standing, it was this brother that told me to come to this lecture. And he was roommates with this other brother. Now, the brother his name was Lee Cook, and he had a roommate, and his name was Damani Yarrow. So I came to the lecture, and I met Damani Yarrow, and met his son, Jamoke, and other friends of theirs. And other classes were being held at this house, yoga classes, classes on diet. So I just stuck around. They also did a retreat once or twice a year, and I went to the retreat, and I just felt like I belonged. I felt like these were my peoples. It was a house, and they had children. So both Damani Yarrow had a son, and Lee Cook had 2 children, a girl and a boy. It became all my friends. The my husband was part of the group. That was my group.
That's where you met your husband.
That's where I met my husband. My parents would describe me as industrious, smart, inquisitive. All right. So, to be honest with you, I did try my best not to show my parents anything that I thought would displease them. I wanted to maintain a goody goody two shoes image as in their eyes. So I didn't share with them some of the things that I was thinking or doing even. As a matter of fact, the last thing I would have shown them at the time I did it was that I had smoked some marijuana. I would have never told them that. Years later, I found out my father had been smoking marijuana.
You never smelled it in the house?
No, I never smelled it. He didn't do it often. He had his little stash. But I didn't share those kinds of things with them. I kept that. I kept things in different apartments, rooms. They would characterize me as goofy, a good friend, but insecure. So I was always like the mascot of the group, but the one that kind of like they had to take me by the hand. So the real fork in the road for me was actually I wouldn't have called it that then, but the fork in my road was the death of my mother, because at that time my objective was to be um, a good person, um, and by my mother dying like that, it was like, God, how could you do this to me? That was my relationship that I had internally with God. Why would you? Why would you? My mother had 5 children. I was the second born, first girl, but I never felt like I was anything other than number one. Even though she had 3 after me and she had my older brother who she adored, but I never had any problems with feeling or knowing where I was in her eyesight. She would give me eye signals when we were out in public. We would giggle and laugh and, had our little secrets. And for her to die like that suddenly and painfully, before she went to the hospital, she was in her bedroom and she was moaning in pain. Her head was going back and forth and she was making noises. And I came to her, somebody came to get me. And I came to her door and I guess she saw me standing there, and what she did was she smiled. She got this great big smile on her face, but I had seen her writhing in pain. And she talked to me gently, told me to comb her hair, which I did. And the next thing I know, she's gone. And I felt betrayed. I felt like, whoa, how could you do that, God? And I was able to I got through that, so to speak, but not whole. And I think one of the things I wanted to do was to be whole. So the pivotal moment of being whole was getting the answer to my question. God made Jesus, who made God? And when I got that, that was my feeling of being whole. All right. Happy memory forever would be getting these boxes. My biological mom is still alive, and these boxes coming in the mail to our house, or I guess she brought them home from the post office. But she'd sit them in the middle of the floor, and she called me over, Carolyn, come here. And she says, we have this box to open. And we'd open this box, and inside were these clothes and shoes beautiful, fluffy dresses and just beautiful stuff. And it was for me. And we had so much fun doing that. I want to put a little aside there. What I found out later were these boxes were coming from Florida, from her aunt who lived in Florida, who did sewing work for white people. And they would give her clothes to send up north to her niece. They had children my age. So that was a happy time of opening those boxes. And I would think the second, or really the first, is the birth of my first son. He was born at home. He was born after only 6 hours of labor, which wasn't really that bad. Not like a TV show. He was born. He was smiling. I mean, well, not smiling, but he was healthy. I had a midwife. I had 6 other women there who were attending to me. I was in my own bed. And to see that little face, and they put a little hat on him, that was the happiest time in my life.
Were most women in that time having babies in the house? Would they prefer to have? No.
Yeah. I was one of the first in our group. And then after that, it became the thing.
Was it scary?
No. It wasn't scary, but I went through some of the typical things that women go through, the hormone thing, where you're kind of out of control and you want to fuss at the people around you. I did do that. I went through the pushing thing, but it was wonderful because nothing happened. He came out healthy, and I was glad to have him. I want to tell them that I'm going to die. And I want to tell them that I have the courage to do it, but I want them to hear me when I say it because I really believe it. So I don't want to see them get sad when I say it. That I know that that's a part of life. I'm a biology teacher, and that's part of life, and I accept it. And the other part, that it's not about courage, it's about how do I make this happen? I want them to, I know they'll grieve. I'm not trying to take that from them, but I want them to smile and say, way to go, Mom. All right, you did it. So getting that message to them is what I'm finding hard to do. And I've tried it a couple of times and it didn't work so far. So I'm still working on it.
So when you graduated from college, you went right to becoming a biology teacher, or
A science teacher. Well, I did meet Martin Luther King. I was again about 13. I still didn't know what was going on, but the mom that raised me, my mom Ronnie, she says to me one day, I came home from school and she says, Dr. Martin Luther King is going to be at the playground down there and you need to go and see him. Know who he was? Okay. So I gather my things up and I go down to meet him. And they have a rope stretched across this space. And I'm standing at the rope, my little hands on the rope. And this man, this man comes strolling down the rope, sticking his hand out, shaking the people's hands, looking them in the eye. And he gets to me and I stick out my hand and I'm staring up at him and I'm like, gosh, who is this? So I shook the hand of Martin Luther King. Hadn't really done the research to know who he was or what he was doing. I eventually found out, but I was able to meet him and then found out and realized that I had met greatness. And then, okay, so that's political. I would say Shechem or Shechem, the chief priest and king of the Asaraset Society. The Asaraset Society is my religious, spiritual organization that I'm a part of. Yes, we morphed. We started out as classes. We were taking classes, and at one point we were all brother and sister. Brother Damani, Brother Lee, Brother Carolyn, Sister, oh gosh, did I say Brother Carol? Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't know Sister Carolyn. So, as time went on and we solidified into an organization, titles changed, but the message did not change. And the my attachment to what was shared at the first meeting never wavered. My biggest regret in life is that behind me being depressed growing up, I didn't really research or tap into the fact that I had a lot of skills that weren't really externalized by me or to me. So I had skills as an artist, seamstress, teacher. I couldn't nail anything down because I really wasn't paying attention. So when it came time to decide to go to college, I couldn't figure out what to say I wanted to study. And my father asked me, he says, okay, you're getting ready to go to college. What's going to be your field? I was going to East Stroudsburg State Teachers College at the time. So I said, he wanted me to be a nurse. His thing was for me to be a nurse and follow in the footsteps of his wife, his first wife, who did not finish Grady. She withdrew to marry him and to move up north. So he was saying, you want to be a nurse? You want to be a nurse? No, he wanted me to be a doctor. You want to be a doctor? You want to be a doctor? I could have been a doctor. Didn't want to. I had the aptitude for it. I just didn't want to. So he's saying that, you want to be a nurse? No. So my thought was, say something that's going to make him smile. So I said, I want to be a teacher. And he smiled. He says, okay, what are you going to teach? At that time, I didn't know that I had a very powerful and strong aptitude in the arts. I didn't know it. I was doing stuff. People were saying, oh, you're a great artist. Oh, you're this, this, this. So I could have said, I want to teach art or I want to be an artist. Instead, I said I was searching for something highbrow to say to him. So I said, I want to teach biology. And he smiled and he walked away happy. Now, the deal was I love biology. And not to be a biologist, but I actually have loved teaching biology. But at the time, I think I would have served myself better had I known about my artistic abilities. I probably would have done some things differently. The best trip of my life was when I took a trip about 6 years ago with my sister. She lives in Rochester, and she says to me, let's travel across country. And I said, well, I don't really like to drive. She says, I'll drive. So she and I drove all the way from Washington, D.C. to California, did all the sights, Painted Desert, um, all those different things along the way. And then we came back, and that was wonderful. First of all, we bonded as it's even tighter. And secondly, I got to see things that I love: water, waterfalls, lakes, mountains, desert. That's how mean people are. That even though I know why, I have an answer for it, and it's an answer that I can see every time I read something or see something about someone hurting animals, other people, saying hurtful things. It's, it pulls on something inside of me that um, I I guess the word that comes up that saddens me, that I feel like, hey guys, can't you see that loving, positive relationships are way better than arguing, fighting, biting, kicking each other? the old days. I miss most seeing uh, African Americans reveling in a look that displays their historic roots. In other words, I miss seeing afros and brothers walking around with dashikis as the normal dress code, sisters wearing their African garb. I miss that. My children, my sons, and the men that they've become. That I can be so judgmental in my opinions that I cloud my own thinking and block my blessings. Well, Washington, D.C.
Favorite?
Mm-hmm.
Better than Philly?
Better than Philly. Oh, in my 30s, I was a mother. Um, let's see. Yeah, I was a mother and teaching. I wasn't teaching. I was doing graphics. I changed careers. I didn't say that, but I had changed careers. I did teaching for 14 years, science, biology. Um, I taught at Ellington School of the Arts, and then taught at independent school. And then I wanted to do something different. Someone handed me a piece of paper. They said, "Hey, you can apply for this job. It's doing graphics." So I did it. And I got the job, and I loved it. So I was working, and then being a mom and a wife. I remember the most that at that time, I was able to design the announcements. I do a hand done graphic image that I felt talked about me instead of a card that I bought from a store. And I designed how the ceremony was going to go. Me and my husband, my future husband, we designed what we wanted. And so it went like this. We had a circle. We were in Rock Creek Park, Grove number 7. And I wanted the crowd to not be sitting out in front of us. So I had our folks, our friends and family surround us in a circle. And I had 4 points to the circle. And in the middle, that's where we did our vows. So I really loved the fact that I was able to graphically and spiritually and mentally and psychically design my own wedding day. But I can't answer that because I don't want to be judgmental. But I know for me, it satisfied everything that I wanted. Everything. It satisfied everybody and anybody that I wanted to invite. I didn't have a cutoff number. It satisfied the people that I wanted to officiate. Okay, I said that the inside of the circle had 4 points. So there was a priestess, African priestess, at one side, and African priest at the other side of the circle, and then on either side of the circle was my parents, my mother on one side, and my father on the other side. So it was like a cross, but it was all I sent. I every invitation that I sent out, I think the people came, and even people were driving through the park and recognized some of the people, and they came. So there was no cutoff to the number of people, and I didn't have to pay. I had only been to one wedding. No. Let me put it this way. Growing up in Philadelphia, I was invited at a young age to 2 weddings where they were going to do the thing, the white dress, everything. And both times I got sick and didn't go. And I was like, wow, I couldn't go. So I don't have a idea of going to a wedding. So the first wedding that I went to was here in DC. It was pretty much like mine. The persons that got married at their parents' house, and but that was kind of like the only one that I remember. So mine was the first that I went to that was how I described it. I guess it would be learning about learning about some of those other things like insurance and those technical things those things that add up. I've been a person that has been extremely blessed. Things happen to me that afterwards I go, oh, really? And they kind of took care of themselves for me, but I didn't do the research. So I'm not saying that I've had any setbacks by not doing the research. I just feel like I maybe could have not been so off balance when it came time to like um, retire or. But actually, the answer to your question is I can't think of anything. Going to thrift stores and buying stuff. Okay, that's it. Being together, laughing. Birthdays, I would say. Yeah, birthdays. Okay, what I want to ask my parents is what did they do with like these questions, some of these questions you asked me, these questions, like what did you do when you were growing up? What did you do for fun? When did you get in trouble? What's the baddest thing you ever did when you were little? And that was when I had graduated from high school, but I had a boyfriend, and I didn't want. I just had this. I didn't want my parents to know me as a sexual person. Um, I feared that, and I wasn't doing anything wrong. I mean, I was doing all the kissing and hugging and petting and stuff, but I didn't even want them to know that. So graduation came, and I was supposed to get a graduation ring, and I had to go downtown in Philadelphia to get it. So I arranged with my boyfriend to meet me, and we met to pick up the ring, and then we walked from downtown Philly to where he lived, and we were, holding hands, hugging, skipping, whatever we were doing. I went to his house. And then I came home. When I got home, my father was there, and he says, "Where were you?" I said, "Oh, I went to get my ring." "What took you so long?" "Oh, it wasn't quite ready yet." I was lying. So I told some more lies. And so finally he says, "Your mother saw you and James together." Oops. Oh, and now this was my graduation. My graduation had been like 2 or 3 days. My mother and father put me on punishment for that point on until the day I was supposed to leave for college. I could not go anywhere. I could not see him. Um, so I was really distraught about that. And so uh, I was probably getting overworked emotionally. So I was eating dinner one night, and my mother said, "Oh, I was supposed to get this cute little haircut with bangs and cut. I knew that it was going to look cute." So I said to my mom, I said, "Am I going to go get the haircut?" And she unleashed on me and said, "No, you won't be able to go get it." So I jumped up from the dining room table and I took this whole forehand, and I cleared everything off the table, everything, and then ran out the house. Well, I was too old to beat, but I was in the throes of a breakdown. I came back. I went to my boyfriend's house. He insisted that I go back home. He walked me back home. I got home, and Um, my father consoled me. My mother she didn't know what to do. But at that point, I think they let go. They realized I was grown. They were trying to impose this punishment on me that, while probably deserving because I had lied, the strictness of it when I'm getting ready to go off to college and I could do anything I wanted to do in college, it was a little bit over the top. But I think it's emotionalism on all fronts, mine, theirs, the times that we lived in. I understand it now. I would say this, and I don't know who I'm focusing on, so I'm just going to say it, that my quest, my journey, which I don't really get to talk about, but I know exactly what I'm saying about it. And I know where I've been. I've been strict, Episcopalian, goody two shoes, um, can't do nothing wrong, to wanting to know who I am, to looking for this and having tasted the Muslim religion, the Christian religion, the Buddhist religion, the Hindu philosophy religion, having read and seen and studied extensively, I would say to young people or people, I would say, find the answer to that question that I asked. Who am I? Just ask that question. Be sincere. Ask it, but don't jump to conclusions when anybody just comes along and tries to tell you who you are. Ask the question with the belief that inside of you, you'll get an answer. Because in today's world, we are fed so many different perspectives, but it's not coming from us getting an answer from inside of us that we can accept and use it to direct our lives. So, for example, when we have a loss of someone that we truly, truly love, we're left with that feeling that I had as a child. God, how could you do this to me? I'm good. I don't ever do anything wrong. Well, I have an answer to that. And the answer to that is because it was time. But we are taught that a loss is almost like a punishment or a wound so deep that it can't be repaired. We eventually get it together, but I would like to tell folks to take a deep breath, relax, and understand that this is life and that you can smile about it. You could be at peace about it. Whew, my Lord. Probably next to nothing. I thought I was rich though. This was 1969. I don't know. I have no idea, but I would say something like I might have been making. I think I don't know, 500 every 2 weeks, something like that. No, that's wrong, but I have no idea. But it was minimal, but
It was enough.
it was enough. It was great. I felt like I was rich. I was able to get a car, just like by just saying I'm a teacher. Boom, they pushed the car in my lap. I was able to get credit card. Everything was open and wide open to me at a teacher salary, beginning teacher salary in 1969. I don't know, but that's a long time ago, 50 years. I don't know, but I had enough for that, and I had enough to have a car. I had a cougar. I had my own apartment,
Transportation money,
transportation, food. I paid for everything, and I had extra. I have no idea. I can't give you that number. But as a teacher was the thing to be back then. Either you be a doctor or you be a teacher, because both of them you made money. All I did was walk into a place, blah blah blah. Teacher, boom. Seriously, no questions asked. I got my first two cars. No questions asked. They, credit card, apartment. I got my first apartment. It was in Philadelphia in a place called Powelton Village. It was near the University of Pennsylvania. Everybody wanted to live in that area. It was a college area back then. College area was a good place to be. The building where I lived was a really wonderful building. Um, so it was swank, you know. Final remarks. I've had a great ride. This incarnation, I believe that this is an incarnation, um, and that we didn't cover it extensively, but you did ask questions about my spirituality, and I believe that next to children, that's the most important thing in my life. I want you to know your history. I want you to know your history inside, outside, upside down, backwards, forwards, and I want you to know the truth of your history. And I want you to know your history as it's connected to your spirituality.